Hey there, welcome to Soundcheck by Support Act. My name's Luke. I'm the Industry Relations Manager for Support Act, and today I am joined by Motez. Thanks for joining me,
What's
Tez.
up? Oh, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Where are you exactly in the world?
I am in my studio in Adelaide, in the city, sort of. It's beautiful weather outside, but I am inside working on some music.
Beautiful Adelaide. So, what's the lockdown picture look like in sunny Adelaide?
It's pretty good. Like, I'd hate to brag about it, unfortunately, but I think local government has done really, really well. There's a bit of a grey area in terms of clubs, so they had to open clubs for one weekend, but then a new sort of wave of restrictions came in to kind of make sure that every club, especially clubs, are COVID safe. They have a plan that they need to action before they open. So it's a little bit of a grey area there, but everything else like restaurants, bars, all that kind of stuff is relatively normal.
Okay, cool. All right, well, before we proceed on too quickly, I just want to remind people who have joined us that Support Act currently is administering the Support Act COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. If you're doing it tough financially and you work in the music industry, whether that is as a crew member, an artist, or working behind the scenes, you are eligible. Well, you should seek out eligibility for our crisis relief fund. So go to our website at supportact.org.au and fill in the application form, and hopefully you can help out with those tough times. The other thing is the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline. If you are struggling with a mental health or wellbeing issue, make sure you call 1-800-959-500. And that service is available to anyone who works in the arts, not just the music industry. So I encourage you to go and call that. And that service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Tez, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
My name is Motez. That's actually my real name. I'm a music producer from Adelaide, South Australia, originally from Iraq, from Baghdad, Iraq. Yeah, I do music for a living, which is pretty damn good. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. So one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you on is recently you did a pretty amazing event which raised $4,000 for Support Act, which we are so thankful for, and it's going to go to
Thank you.
very needy people in our industry right now. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that event and also musically what you were trying to produce and why you decided to support us.
Well, I guess people who know what I do traditionally, I do, I guess, predominantly dance music and music that's consumed in like a club setting and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I had everything kind of lined up towards the end of the year, releases and all that kind of stuff and shows. And within a week, because of COVID-19, everything just completely fell apart. Within a week, I had shows between Asia and an American trip, and everything just completely fell apart. And I think I got into the mindset of, it took me a couple of days to kind of realize what's going on. And I thought I'd spoke to my team back then, and I thought I wanted to do something different. I wanted to make music that is, I've always done music with purpose, and that's been my sort of mantra, is like music has to come from a place from the heart and a place of experience. And so people would resonate with it more because you come across a little bit more honest. So I wanted to kind of lean more into being honest with myself, what I like and what's going on in the world. I had to move my studio, the current studio that I'm in, I had to move everything back home in the spare room and set everything up. And all of a sudden I started seeing some sort of silver lining in what's going on, in that I think musicians in general are resourceful and you make the most of the situation. And I wanted to make the most of that situation. And I started to all of a sudden, as opposed to this room that you can see, there's no windows back home. All of a sudden I have a window. I could see outside. The seasons were changing. It was going from summer to autumn. Just like sunlight's coming through the room. And I thought, I want to channel more of this. And so naturally for me, I started making music that I listen a lot to, but I've never actually tapped into. And so I started working on Solitude. I said, I want this to be almost a time capsule of what's going on in my head as a musician, as a person, as a citizen of the world and citizen of this country. It's that I needed to make sure that I want to present what's going on through my head, in my heart, to the outside world with the least amount of barriers possible. And naturally, Solitude came to me, and those tracks are a more ambient, I think, emotive sort of thing that is not something I have made before. So I think it was very important to do it in that context and present it visually that way.
Yeah, and it's really beautiful. And
Thank you.
to be honest, it's not a genre that I'm very familiar with. It's not my wheelhouse at all. But like just coming into contact with your music through Support Act, I had a listen and was like, wow, this is beautiful stuff. And like you say, I think a lot of people have found through this time it's been a really great opportunity to have a bit of a creative detour. Like, so I guess for your own, how you were feeling when lockdown hit and everything changed. Do you feel like this was part of keeping busy, some kind of personal journey for yourself through lockdown?
Yeah, I guess I've always been, there's the plight of part of my personality is like, I'm never ever sort of satisfied with what's going on. I'm always like trying to look for things that are different. But the flip side of that is like, I'm never sure that I don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm always kind of trying to, be ahead of time and like not be in a place where I feel like there's a level of volatility. And I thought things going into lockdown and losing all the work and losing all shows, because that's like what I do. I love playing shows and I love performing. All of that was gone, and that highlighted the fact that, our jobs unfortunately are pretty volatile. And so I think I wanted some sort of catharsis, and I wanted this project to be a reflection of what's going on in my head. And yeah, that just all came naturally to me. I think it was more or less just to kind of show how volatile our jobs are. And I think it was natural for me to team up with Support Act because you guys have, I guess, mechanisms for that. But the most important thing was the awareness, the framework for people outside of our industry to realize how volatile our jobs are, but how also important culturally and financially on a mundane level, how important we are.
Yeah, I will echo those sentiments 100%. I think one thing that this has highlighted is the fragility of the arts. And it's something that people really, I guess, in the general public take for granted. Well, some people do. They want that, to live in a world that's filled with art, whether it be TV series, music, etc. But through this, it's really the role of artists and people from the music industry and the broader arts to tell that story, that it is a fragile existence working in the music industry, and it doesn't necessarily it's not the stability that you would expect in any other industry. So it's important that you would tell that story, Motez.
Yeah, it's very important to tell our story in the language that we know. And I think going back to the point that it's not something that you listen to, this kind of music, I think a lot of people that said after listening to Solitude and after watching the video that we made for it, it's not something that they normally listen to, but I think it was very, very relevant to the time that when all these things going on, this madness around us going on, it's really good to feel centered, and that's what I wanted to do with Solitude. For me personally, I guess, when I try to look at it from a personal perspective, I wanted to feel centered, and I wanted to feel like this is the tether. Music is my tether, and it's my way of coping with what's going on. And I always think about when times are tough and I just immediately go to the studio, start making music. I always think to myself, I don't know what I would have done without it. It's something that is such a big way for me to express myself. And I think people are going through the same thing.
I think, like you say, a lot of people who work in creating music find, depending on what genre you make, find peace in the creation of music. Has it always been something that you have found has added peacefulness or mindfulness or some kind of anchor in your life?
Yeah, definitely. I've always made music, as I said earlier. I try to make music to come. I want to make music in a sense that It comes from the heart, and it comes from a personal experience that's going on around me. And the ones that were probably the most visceral are the ones that are connected with people the most. So I try to probably tap more and more into that. And it's always been the case with everything that I make. And yeah, this particular project is one of them. Even at times where I just make purely just dance music just for the hell of it, there was always a story behind it. It has to be, for me. That's the way I operate.
That's the electronic music that I can connect with.
Yeah. And there's times for it. You know what I mean? Like now I am like, I'll probably let you in on an insight. It's like, I've been thinking the last few days, I'm like thinking to myself, like, Tez, like whatever you make is just way too serious. Like, I want to make something that is such a, I guess, for lack of better words, like a piss take on what's going on, and just completely just have fun. So on the flip side, there's something. Yeah, exactly. So who knows? That's probably going to be my next step. I think that's what I was working on now.
I think that's a good thing. I always found I'm a singer-songwriter, and I had a moment where I went, why do I feel the need to always write such serious, deep, dark stuff all the time? I was like, why don't you have a bit more music? And so now I write much happier music, and I'm much happier for it, I think. So
there's room for it.
Anger Luke and say, stop being so serious, man. Let's write some stuff that people can pop to, Hey, but I think the big question and a challenge that we hear, particularly through our helpline, is trying to balance that idea of having a creative career, but also balancing the business side of it. And yourself, you're a relatively successful artist. How do you manage that need for success and to build a career in the music industry, whilst also maintaining that kind of creative mind and that mindset?
It's not easy at all. It's a very delicate balance, and I'm pretty lucky that I was in a position to express myself, and I'm very, very thankful to express myself the way I want to express myself and make a career out of it. But I completely know that I am in such a small minority, and there's so many people around me, a lot of my friends, that have to make balance those decisions of purely business or purely creative, because sometimes when you go down the route of purely creative, it's not going to be, sometimes it's not fruitful financially. And it took me some time. Like I finished university and I was working full time, then I went working part time. And a good 2-3 years of my career, when my career is like, I was touring around the country, I was still, I was still working.
Throw to press shot.
No. I was just like, I got a call from my barber, actually. I got a call from my barber, which is really nice. He's someone that's helped me a lot in like the sort of psychological aspect. But yeah, yeah, I think, I was a good 2 years in my retail job touring, because I was like, I don't know when this is going to fall apart. Like it's such a volatile and fragile industry to be in. So I had to make that financial decision. It's eaten away from my creative time just so I can support myself, I guess. It's a very, very delicate balance. And I think it's sometimes good to be realistic in certain ways, but sometimes you got to trust the people around you and trust your really, really close friends to go. For me, it was my family that went, Tez, like, music is going really well. I think you should focus on that, leave everything else.
Yeah, that's great. That's great support. Okay, so in terms of like having a career, particularly in the electronic music scene, how do you maintain your own health? Or to put it a different way, people find that they have to live up to this expectation of how you conduct yourself when you're an artist in the music industry. Like, say if you're in rock and roll, you've got to be rock and roll. You've got to live up to all the stereotypes. That is all changing. I wonder, in electronic music, is it kind of the same thing?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general, it's something that I've noticed. I guess something that I have personally grappled with is coming from a country that is, so I grew up in Iraq, I grew up in the Middle East. And so people there are a little bit more like hard on their sleeve, expressive. And So moving to Australia, the Western countries, I guess, is a different way of dealing with emotions, especially when you're in sort of the spotlight and people are looking at you. In electronic music as well, you have to have some sort of a persona, I guess, or you have to show that you are invincible and nothing breaks you. When I know for a fact there's so many of us that struggle, and you need to have that balance of showing really what's going on. And I think for me, it was very important to show that through music. I'm glad that I think it's, in a general sense, everyone is a little bit more open to talking about psychological effects of their work or life in general. There's so much more, we're bombarded with a lot more sort of negative news coming out. So I'm glad that we're at a time now where people can talk more about their emotions. I think it could be done more. And I think these sort of talks are very, very important for people to kind of see that a lot of myself and my colleagues, we do struggle. I have a lot of struggles, and people like my barber, Tony, hears a lot more about it. And, my close friends, and I think it happens a lot. And I hope more people would come forward a little bit more and talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Taz. And it's true, man. Like, people put people up on pedestals, and I'm sure you're up on a pedestal for many people out there. And it's really good for them to know that it's just human to have issues. And it's funny that you mentioned your barber being someone you turn to, because we did a series for Support Act called Tune Ups, and Briggs, I don't know if you know the rapper.
Yeah.
He also chose to sit in the barber's chair and talk about how getting a sweet fade and talking to his barber is what he does to look after his mental health. So you're part of
absolutely
illustrious crew there. Talking to your barber, what are some ways that you try to look after yourself, so you're feeling right in the head and right in the body?
I guess for me, the main steps usually are talking to my really, really, really close friends, and a couple of them work in music, so they understand the sort of plight of being in music.
Late nights, the bad sleeping patterns, the bad diet, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially more touring, like it happens a lot more when you're touring. I talk to my family. Sometimes I'm trying not to freak them out a little bit too much, because they're so proud and I'm their pride and joy, in a way. So I don't want to break it to them that sometimes, life is pretty harsh. But I think something that I've realized how important exercise was for me personally, and getting out of bed as early as possible. I'm a morning person, weirdly enough, and so I try to get out of bed as early as possible. And even during lockdown, I made sure that I am exercising all the time. I understand sometimes it's very hard to have a PT because, it's an expense as a struggling musician. Sometimes some people can't afford that, but you could probably have that sort of, I guess it's easier said than done, but having that mentality of I need to really look after myself. Talking to people, talking to professionals has been very important. And I know a lot of people around me do it. And again, people are a lot more open about it nowadays than they used to be. And that's very important. The more people talk about it, the more it's kind of normalized. And I think just expressing yourself through music and feeling things, I think the problem is maybe I'm not really fully equipped to talk about these things, but as men, it's very important for men to be open with their feelings, be a lot more expressive, and share what's going on exactly. If you don't feel like sharing it with a wider, I guess, audience, just share it with your friends. And even if you have it in your tank to talk to your public, to your fans as a musician, I think it's very important. I think people need to know these things, and men in your life need to know these things, and everyone in general need to know that you're open about these things, and everyone's struggling.
I think that's a really great point. And with Men's Mental Health Week just a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people feel like we've arrived at the destination when it comes to talking about the stigma related to mental health issues, but we're not there yet. And also talking about mental health is, it's this continuum of mental health doesn't just have to mean that you don't have depression or you don't have anxiety, or you do. It's also about how you improve your overall disposition.
Yeah.
I think we're still, you know, as a country, as a people, and particularly blokes, like you say, very much on that journey at the moment. And, you know, the music industry is hopefully going to lead the way in that sense. Hey, Motez, thanks so much for joining me today, man. I really have appreciated your time.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Words. Before I let you go, make sure if you're doing it tough, call the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500. And if you're hitting some financial tough times, go to supportact.org.au and go to Get Help and do an application for our Crisis Relief Fund. Thanks, Tez.
Thanks, man. Much love. Appreciate it.